Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Tuesday, September 20th. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. We're talking Royals today with Royals General Manager J.J. Picollo. He joined our SportsBeat Live broadcast about 15 minutes in and spent time answering questions from beat writer Lynn Worthy and columnist Vahe Gregorian. We discussed the disappointment of this season, JJ's first as the general manager. We looked at pitching development. It's been a tough year for starters not named Brady Singer or Zach Greinke. We talked about the lineup and if the Royals have the right pieces in place going forward, and much more. Okay, let's get started. Hey, good morning from unseasonably warm Kansas City, and welcome to SportsBeat Live, presented by the University of Kansas Health System. You'll hear from KU Med later in the show. We're joined today, at the moment, by beat writer Lynn Worthy and columnist Vahe Gregorian. We're here, of course, to talk Kansas City Royals baseball. We believe columnist Sam McDowell will be with us later on, and we are going to have a guest today, and it's going to be fun. We're going to have Royals General Manager J.J. Picollo join us at about 10:15. He was kind enough to agree to take questions from Vahe, Lynn, Sam, and myself, and we really look forward to having him on the show. That's a pretty good deal, guys, isn't it?
Yeah, as far as Sam not being here, I just want to say, our team is on the field.
Well, are you going to put the question to JJ that way too, Lynn? It's it's really nice though to have him on, and we're I think fortunate, Lynn, you can speak to this better than I can in the JJ regime, but we're fortunate to be able to have access to Royals front office for things like this, and it's not, I think, altogether common in a general way, but specifically for things like this. So it's really great this can happen.
For sure. I think that's a good point, Vahe. I don't know if every market would have a situation quite like this. One thing, but there is some Royals business I want to talk about before JJ joins us. But I do want to say, listen, he's going to answer our questions, but he said he would answer your questions as well. So please send us some questions and comments. I think now's a good time to get them in, line them up, and we'll have JJ field some of those questions and comments. So fire away, and maybe not the best term. Let's go ahead and ask those questions and present some comments, and maybe we'll get JJ to answer a couple of them. But again, there is some Royals business. Lynn, I thought you had a really good story this week on Brad Keller. We haven't talked much about Brad, the pitcher who has gone from an opening day starter to the bullpen, and his numbers recently have been very good. What didn't start out that way for Brad Keller, but lately he's been pretty effective in the bullpen.
Yeah, his last few outings, I think actually the last 3 or 4, you've seen the real difference between the ERA. And when you're talking about relief outings, it's all small sample size because it's an inning here, 2 innings there. But you see a slight difference in terms of the strikeouts, like he's just averaging about a strikeout per inning now out of the bullpen. You see just, I can't remember what the number was in the last 4. It's, he hasn't given up a whole lot of base runners compared to the first, I think, 5 times out of the bullpen, because he's got 9 relief outings now. So batting average has gone down against him as well. So you see a little bit of a difference there. And talking to him just during the last homestand, he talked about getting used to just the routine, being down there. He's starting to use the splitter a little bit more, which was a pitch that he's sort of, toyed with when he was a starter, has come back around to. They think it's going to help to try to get some swing and miss, because as a reliever, you're going to come into situations where there might be men on base and it's going to be a tight score. And it's not necessarily going to be a, starter type situation where you have time to work around things or, time to make up for things. Like if you're coming in high leverage, you need to hold everything where it is right at that moment. And so strikeouts become more important. And that hasn't really been his MO, but you've seen a little bit more of that too.
How is he, just kind of taking the idea of going from from rotation to bullpen. And Lynn, and then Vahe, I wanted to get what your thoughts on how well that's worked in the past for the Royals.
I would say I think it was definitely jarring at first. I mean, if you go back to when they made that announcement, I believe we were in Tampa, or maybe we were in Minnesota, and then he spoke to us a day later in Tampa, and he said he didn't see it coming. I think he was pretty straightforward about that. I think now, a few weeks into it, still think his heart would be, in starting, but I think he's sort of, he's trying to get as accustomed to the new situation as he can and try to make the most of it.
Blair, along those lines, I mean, there's a few examples, right? But nothing more striking than let's go with Wade Davis, although Luke Kochaver was a good example, right? But Wade Davis, I haven't looked this up. I don't know if he was about the same age Brad is now when that move happened with him, but it's easy because of what he became. It's easy to forget. There was a period of time where it was like, well, that part of the trade didn't work out. It didn't work out for him in the rotation, and I don't know if the Royals tend to think that way more because of a couple of these past successes and sort of conversion rates. But I assume that informs their thinking to some degree, that and the specifics of it are, I mean, unique to Brad and unique to each situation. But I do wonder how much that's part of their hope, that they see something very, very different about what he might, kind of the code he can maybe crack in this role. And Lynn, you've written about that, and I think there's more to be determined because it is such a small sample size so far. And one quick question though for you, back at you, Lynn, do you feel like the decision is made that this is what they're going to be working with on Brad for the foreseeable future? I mean, not just through the end of the season. I mean, is that how they'll script him going forward?
I'm not sure that decision has been entirely made. The way it sounded, at least at the time and even just subsequently, is that this period they wanted to see what it looked like. More of a get a look at it, start to make some evaluations, and then go from there. And I think, my sense would be that depending on what's available and what options they have this offseason for the whole staff, may decide what role he plays. But my sense wasn't so much that it was set in stone, but that it was, something they wanted to take a look at. And they thought, I think they're definitely going to give it a shot. And I don't know if it's saying too much to say they're going to give it every shot, but I think it's something they wanted to at least get a good look at. And also just in this small sample too, I think to me, it's also not to say they haven't committed to it, but it's not like, where you have certain relievers like Barlow, Stelma, where they earmark certain parts of the lineup and say, okay, this is where we're going to use this guy. He's still sort of in this role where, he's sort of bridging the gap to their main bullpen guys. So that's another reason that I think that it's still a little bit, nebulous as far as if this is going to be, the way going forward, or if they could still sort of go backwards on it. But I think they clearly made the decision when they didn't have to, that they wanted to see it late this season. So that makes you think that they want to give this a shot.
Yeah, that makes it in that way different than what Wade Davis, how he was used in 14 and 15. Remember, he was the eighth inning guy, the setup guy for Greg Holland in 14. And after Holland was injured in 15, Davis became the closer, and or at least part of his role. He did close games, and he certainly was that guy in the World Series. And I maintain, and I've said it before, in those 2 years, there was no better pitcher on the planet than Wade Davis. His 14 and 15 seasons were just, otherworldly. When you look at the numbers, they were just amazing. And it's kind of a high bar that the Royals set with that move. And those around him, except for Luke Kochaver, correct me if I'm wrong, Vahe, but everybody else was a relief pitcher in those years. Holland, Herrera, the others who seventh and sixth inning guys.
Yeah, that's right. And as far as I know, I mean, I'm 99% sure Holland was relief, from the minute he joined the Royals organization. I can't quite remember if Kelvin was a little bit in the low minors, that they gave him a starting shot, but certainly his whole major league time was all about that.
Right. Okay. Hey, let's switch gears. The other piece of news that has come off-field news for the Royals in the last few days was they're naming their minor league players of the year for AAA and AA. I've got them here. I'll read them out, then I'll ask Lynn if there are any kind of surprises here. But the AAA Omaha players of the year were outfielder Brewer Hicklin, and the pitcher was Andres Nunez, right-handed relief pitcher. In AA from Northwest Arkansas, the player of the year was outfielder Tyler Gentry, and the left-handed pitcher starter Drew Parrish was the pitcher of the year. Of course, I think the Royals previously had named their lower minor league players and pitchers of the year. Am I right about that, Lynn? And were there any surprises among these choices?
I don't think there was a surprise based on performance. I mean, when you look at what Brewer Hicklin had a 20-20-20 season in terms of, home runs, doubles, stolen bases, which is, type of thing that I think, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, 5 guys have done for the Royals, 2 of them being Alex Gordon and Bobby Witt Jr. So, I mean, he's production-wise, he obviously has earned it. I think if you were to say, okay, prospect-wise, would there be some other guys? But also a lot of those guys spent a good chunk of time in the majors. So, I mean, at the beginning of this season, if you looked at the AAA roster, you're probably pointing to Vinnie Pasquantino, Nick Prado, MJ Melendez, but all those guys are in the big leagues now. And then, whether you go even further down to a guy like Nate Eaton and, it's funny because you almost want to say somebody like Michael Massey, but Michael Massey started the season at AA and is now in the big league. So he had some time at AAA and performed well. But so I think as far as a guy who's there all season and performed all season, Hicklin, like I say, isn't a surprise, but I think it's probably just a name that people might not have been as familiar with, except for the fact that he did come up this year when they had their little COVID outburst there and they had to fill in some roster spots.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. I remember him on the major league roster with the when he played in the Toronto series. And what is that? If I got that right, was it the Toronto series?
Well, he came up previously. I want to say it was in Minnesota. They had a period earlier in the season where I'm trying to remember who the players were, but I think Michael A. Taylor missed some time. And then after that, they had about 3 or 4 other guys, a couple guys in the bullpen. And so they had guys that they brought up to the majors that weren't on the 40-man roster. So that's where you saw Dairon Blanco came up, for a period earlier in the season. But then he was also there later in the season in Toronto. I can't even remember for sure. I think he was on the roster. There's a lot of guys who were actually in Toronto that weren't on the roster, but they were there for the first time too.
Very good. Okay. Hey, let's go to break. We'll hear from the University of Kansas Health System. And when we come back, Royals General Manager J.J. Picollo will join us.
March 4th, 2015, I got out of the shower and felt a lump in my left breast.
We were able to quickly uncover that she had 2 subtypes of breast cancer, each of them requiring separate and unique treatment plans. This is why you come to the University of Kansas Cancer Center.
It is critical to be treated by a team of experts in that specific cancer type. If you don't start with us, I think you'll have more questions than answers.
Why would you go anywhere else?
Hey, this is Blair. There are several ways to access the Star Sports section. Let me tell you about a couple of them. There is Sports Pass. For $12.99 a month, you get unlimited digital access to all of the Star Sports content, including beat writing, columns, features, pretty much everything we write. The deal renews monthly until you tell us to cancel. For $159.99 a year, you get everything the Star has to offer digitally, including sports and the e-edition. Go to kansascity.com and drop down to the bottom of the page where it says Start a Subscription for more information. Your support has never been more important. As always, thanks for reading and listening. There is J.J. Picollo. J.J., thank you very much for joining us on SportsBeat Live. You're on with Vahe Gregorian and Lynn Worthy. How you doing today?
Doing well, guys. How are you?
Good, JJ. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Morning, Lynn.
Yeah, JJ, I thought I'd get it started. I just, the Royals start a homestand tonight, right? The last homestand of the season, 6 games against Twins, Mariners, and then finish the season on the road, 3 in Detroit and crazy 6 at Cleveland. This is your first year as general manager. You're approaching your 1-year anniversary. I believe it's in September of last year. Oh, you're past your 1-year anniversary, if I got the date right. And I just wanted to get a sense from you about your experience on the job. And listen, the team was 74-88 last year. I was thinking there would be an improvement in the final record this year. Not going to happen, officially not going to happen with the last loss. So I just want to just get your thoughts on where the team is right now, kind of relative to expectations. And I think we'll drill down on specifics in a moment.
Yeah, no, it's been a very trying year to say the least. Our expectations were higher than the way we're performing right now. I think our roster looks drastically different than it did earlier in the year, and probably a lot of guys in the major leagues that we really didn't expect to get as many at bats or innings pitched as they did this year. So there's some positives there, but overall, we got off to a tough start. We weren't swinging the bats well. We weren't pitching well. Then we started to make some changes offensively. We had our first tough decision of the year when we changed our hitting coach. That was a different experience for me. So when I reflect on the year and what I learned from this year, or maybe an experience that I haven't experienced in the past, that certainly was a big one. And then, we started to trickle in a lot of young hitters that were playing alongside of a lot of our young pitchers. So, when it was all said and done, it has been a tough year. We can draw some positives from it. But, again, it was I'd be lying if I said we're where we expected to be at this point. And we got to keep working hard, keep our head down, and look to ways to improve this team next year.
JJ, I want to touch base on pitching development, which I know is always a focus, not just of you all, but it seems like of every organization in Major League Baseball. And I was thinking back to, I think, February, we spoke about pitching development. You talked about the pandemic year, stunning some of the development, and then also being so health conscious last year that maybe some of the improvements that were made were hard to see. Pitchers having a better idea of themselves and their stuff, how to attack hitters, but it didn't necessarily show up. This season, with some of the upper level affiliates and collectively pitching wise, where do you feel like you guys are at? How do you assess things? And I know obviously, you guys have at least decided to make one change because Jason Simontachi came out and posted on social media. Where are you guys at with the assessment of the pitching development right now?
Yeah, I think, starting with the major league team, again, we're running 3 to 4 starters through the rotation in any 5-day span. So with that, it's difficult to string a lot of wins together just because we are somewhat inexperienced at the major league level. But when I evaluate and try to objectively evaluate where we're at, I'm looking at 2018 until now, through the 22 season. And what I see what our pitchers are doing at the major league level, it compares very favorably to the rest of the industry. And I know that's, not a popular thing to say right now, but if you really dig down into the numbers, it's because we have 5 guys out of that 18 draft that are pitching on a regular basis in the major leagues, where there are a lot of teams right now that don't have 5 guys in the major leagues pitching. So that's a challenge in and of itself. In the minor leagues, when I look at the progress we made from 2018, there was a drastic improvement in 2019. There was a drastic improvement in 2021. This year has been a tough year in the minor leagues, and we're having meetings constantly to try to figure out why did we get off track this year. Paul Gibson's our director of pitching, senior director of pitching. I think he's done an outstanding job. Has a great understanding of people. He's got a great understanding of delivery. He's got a great understanding of data and technology and how to implement it. Paul's not at every affiliate every day, so a lot of it falls on our pitching coaches in the minor leagues to try to solve problems. So we're evaluating that. We're trying to figure out why we trended the other way this year. But if you go back and look at the organizational gains in 19 and 21, it was pretty drastic from 16, 17, 18. So again, objectively trying to, come to some conclusions on where do we need to improve, what do we need to add to our organization from whether it's an intelligence standpoint, whether it's technology standpoint, personnel standpoint, what do we need to do? There are all the discussions we're having now to end the season. But I think what we were able to do with development is the reason why we were confident in moving guys through to the major leagues and why we have so many guys in the major leagues in a short period of time.
Do you, and I know obviously, like you said, these discussions are ongoing, but are there any things that you guys have sort of jumped out at you or that you guys really feel like, is evident even as you guys are having these discussions that you need to address going into this offseason?
Yeah. It's going to sound pretty basic, but why we're not throwing strikes on a consistent basis is the one that's eating at me. That's strike one and why we're walking guys. And we have some reason to believe that some of our processes that we implemented and got a little bit heavy-handed with, mainly the game planning perspective that we emphasize more than I think we probably should at the lower levels, probably has hindered us. So we may back off of that and try to keep it more basic. As we continue to develop as a staff, the idea of pitch design, tunneling, we have guys in our system now that were not here 4 and 5 years ago. We've changed job descriptions for a few guys. Mitch Stetter is our minor league strategist who does a lot of work with Edgertronic cameras, kind of digs through the data along with Brandon Nelson, who's in our R&D department, to try to come up with solutions on different pitches that may work. So we'll continue to expand those efforts. But to answer your question, the one that is as old as the game is throwing strikes. And that's where we really have to see improvement next year.
JJ, you were talking about basically all the rookies and how it sort of started with the trickle, and you kind of ended up flooding the zone with that among your position players. And I wonder to what degree you feel like you've turned a certain corner in understanding what your core is going to be on the field over the next couple of years, and what level of faith you have that you've kind of got more than just the nucleus, but really the framework.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep group. We like to, or I shouldn't say we, but this group's compared to the group back in 2012 and 13. I think we're a little bit more dynamic and maybe a little bit more athletic overall. When I talk about just the core that came through our system, we added Kane and Escobar at that time, and they were pretty dynamic, but they didn't come through our system. When you look at MJ and Prado and Vinnie, Bobby Witt Jr., Nate Eaton, Kyle Isbell, there's a lot of athleticism. Drew Waters, who we picked up, there's a lot of athleticism on the field. I think we can score in a lot of ways. We've talked about this over the years. It's not a ballpark where, we're drafting players hoping to hit the ball out of the ballpark. We want the game in action. And when I watch our games and we're stealing bases and going first to third and scoring on a ball in the gap, that's the way we like to play baseball. And this group's certainly capable. I think certain guys have established themselves pretty well. Needless to say, Bobby Witt Jr. has been outstanding all year long, very consistent. Really happy with his offensive play. We've got some work to do with him defensively. He's certainly athletic enough. There's things that I think we can do with him and he's going to do on his own that allow him to become a well above average defensive player. MJ Melendez has been outstanding. It's a different look for us having that type of hitter in the leadoff spot, but we've really liked that. And MJ's athletic. He can steal a base. He's not Ricky Henderson, but if you go to sleep on him, he'll take the bag. Drew Waters has been a great look at him. Vinny's been really consistent. I think the best thing about Vinny is when he was hitting the ball hard and not getting the results that you would think he would have gotten, he didn't get out of his approach. And that's a very mature thing to do for a young player. So we were all very happy to see him do that. Nick Prado, I think, did a nice job. I know we just optioned him down, but that was a chance to get Olivares up and get some at-bats for Olivares. So I don't mean to be too long-winded, but I do think pieces are in place that will allow us to be a solid offensive club.
And I'm glad you mentioned Nick Prado, because one of the questions that I'm sure our audience has is, obviously you don't do this lightly. You're trying to maximize his development. And yet if you see him as part of the core, can you just speak to how this has come to be and why you guys made the evaluation that was it as simple as more at bats for Olivares, or was it something that you thought Nick could benefit from?
It was already starting to not fit like it first did. We were playing Nick Prado in the outfield a lot, but that was when Salvi was down and MJ was catching a lot. So when Salvi comes back, now MJ's playing left field, so there's less at bats for Nick. At the same time, Vinnie got hurt, so now there are a lot of at bats for Nick at first base. So now we have Drew Waters up, who I think has done a very admirable job playing the outfield. We wanted to get him at bats, and now Olivares comes off the 60-day, and Ollie was one of our better players early in the year, so we needed to get him up. So we could have gone a different route, and Nick would have been not playing. He'd be playing even less than he was. But then looking at where he is in his career, is that the best thing for Nick Prado? It's not an indication of what we believe in or how we believe in Nick Prado. That's not it at all. It's really, we're at the end of the season. He's got a chance to go down, get another 50, 60 at-bats possibly before the end of the AAA season. That's the best thing for his development and the best thing for the Royals moving forward. It doesn't change the competition that he'll be involved with in spring training next year. Yeah, he did a nice job for us. He's a young major league hitter that hopefully has learned a lot about the major leagues in the time that he did have up this year.
No, Blair, did you have one?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to, one of the success stories of the season is Brady Singer, and I'm wondering if there's a Brady Singer lesson that can be applied here as you look to the rotation for next year and beyond.
Yeah, well, it's certainly an indication of how quickly things can turn for a pitcher once they figure something out. In this case, when Brady came into spring training, he wasn't commanding the ball the way he's capable of commanding the ball. We had other guys that were pitching better than he was at that time. So we made the choice to start the year off in the bullpen. We also had a feeling that it was going to end up, our starters weren't going to go deep into games early on, and we were going to utilize this almost like a tandem system. Starter goes 4, next guy goes 4, and Brady was going to be part of that. We were getting decent starts out of our starters, deeper starts than we anticipated early on, so that opportunity never came. What I take out of this with Brady, and hopefully others do as well, Brady was on a mission to get his fastball movement back, to correct something, to get his command back. Usually when he's commanding fastball, slider is really good as well. And then also to throw a third pitch in the changeup, which he did commit to that when he went back to the minor leagues. But what I took away from that was you gave Brady Singer a task. He went and he attacked it. He perfected it, and he turned it into a really good season. And hopefully that's an indication for others that you're a small adjustment away from really turning the corner. It's just a matter of figuring out what that adjustment is.
JJ, I got two, one short one, and then one I think is going to be a little bit of a bigger picture. Just because we actually were talking about before you came on with Brad Keller and the move to the bullpen, how permanent or how, I guess, committed are you guys at this point to that going forward?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're committed to it. It was something we wanted to see if he would excel in that role. And maybe we had another person at the back end of our bullpen. Lynn, you weren't here at the time, but Blair and Vahe were, when we moved, whether it's Luke Hochevar to the pen, whether it's Wade Davis to the pen, some guys just excel in that role. And we wanted to see if that was going to be the case with Brad. He's shown some signs of being able to do some special things back there. But he hasn't really shown us that he's going to, be a closer at this point. So as we get into our offseason discussions, there will be discussion about whether or not he's in our rotation, because what we need to do is communicate effectively to Brad how he needs to train this off season. So in our closing meetings in these next, really 2 weeks, that'll be communicated to Brad. And, it's not that a decision's being made, but it's giving him clarity on how he'll need to prepare for spring training and what type of role he'll be competing for.
And then I guess that leads into the last question I had, I guess I was thinking more towards the pitching staff, but I guess it really goes for the whole entire roster. You guys have taken a lot of looks at some guys in, whether it's bullpen roles or some of these young pitchers, guys like Castillo, bringing up different guys and taking a look at them at this last stretch of the season. Done the same thing with some of the young position players. How does this factor, or how much, I guess, is that going to factor into what you guys do this offseason? How aggressive do you feel like you guys will be as far as adding to this roster? And just, I guess, what sort of decisions do you feel like, or I guess are decisions being made off of these last couple of months and what you've seen from these young guys as you guys have sort of turned over the Major League roster?
Yeah, I think what it's given us is some clarity on how prepared players may be to compete at a high level at the major leagues. And, when we look at how we're going to have to compete better next year, whether or not we need to add a starting pitcher. Zach Greinke's a free agent, so I think we clearly have a hole there that we need to fill. We might need to sign 2 starting pitchers. When we look at the back end of our bullpen, I think we do have guys that can pitch in the middle. Some of the guys that you just mentioned, Max Castillo, I think he's done a phenomenal job in the couple looks that he's gotten. He probably can pitch in the middle. If our rotation was deeper, somebody like a John Heasley can go into the bullpen. You guys have been around us long enough. We want to continue to develop guys as starters. That's the main goal, because the more starters that we can develop, the more we can stretch our finances. We could add in other ways. But we do have some guys that can fit in the middle, but we need some guys that can take some pressure off of Scott Barlow. Dylan Coleman has taken a nice step forward this year. Consistency with a lot of the players we have on the team, whether it be pitchers or position players. Consistency is the key to being a successful major league pitcher. So we've seen all of our guys at some point show us flashes of being really good at what they do, but the consistency is going to be the key part. So whether it's a Dylan Coleman, we had Taylor Clark, who I thought was pitching really well until he unfortunately got hurt, but he seems to be a guy that we can lean on that has a good feel for the strike zone. So being able to maybe add to our bullpen to allow Scott Barlow to be even more successful. Scott's used in a lot of different ways because he's closing games. He's coming in the 8th at times for us. That can be really taxing on a pitcher, but until guys command the ball really well and are consistent down there, the pressure's still going to be on Scott. So we've got to focus on that as well this offseason.
Okay, JJ, you've been very generous with your time, and we so appreciate it. JJ Picollo, his first year as the Royals general manager. That's going to do it for SportsBeat Live. Wanted to thank Lynn Worthy, Vahe Gregorian, and JJ Picollo for joining us. We'll be back next week, next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Please join us then. That'll do it for today. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC staff of Monty Davis, Randy Mason, George Howard, and Jeff Rosen. Tip of the cap to Vahe Gregorian and Lynn Worthy for sharing their insights and inquisitive natures. And, of course, to Royals General Manager J.J. Picollo for sharing his time with us. Morning Sports Edition was 47 pages today, and my favorite part of it was the coverage of golf's President's Cup, 6 pages worth. Check it out at liveedition.kansascity.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC.